Hey guys, happy Halloween. Oh my God, my cat is freaking me out. Charlie, what is going on? I don't know. Hi guys, happy Halloween. I don't even know. I can't believe it's Halloween. How this month went by so freaking fast. Like, I cannot believe it. So I wanted to actually have it darker in here, but with the way my window and my desk are set up, I could only cover part of the window, which is probably a good thing because I don't think my camera could focus if it was much darker than this. So I did move my set around a little bit, and I do have a candle lit for a creepy ambiance. So with it being Halloween, I wanted to do an extra video of scary stories. I don't know, over the last week I've been really focused on Ouija board stories. Like, I don't know why. Like, I told that one last Friday, on Friday. I told that one on Friday, and it just captured my attention. And like, Ouija boards have always been something that fascinate me in a way. Like, I am never going to use one. Like, I was in the Google Play Store and I saw like the Ouija board app, and I was like, maybe I could download it just for this video, just like have fun with it. And I'm like, no, that's a bad idea. You're not doing that. But so I was looking into some Ouija board stories and I found a couple, but I had a thought. It's not a Ouija board story, but it is a seance story. And I thought I would tell it to you guys because it actually happened to my mom. So my mom was 17, I believe, as she tells it, and she was having a sleepover with some friends one night. And this was like within a week after one of their classmates had committed suicide. And so, I mean, they were all grieving and teenagers, and so not making distinctly smart decisions. And so one of the girls, and I mean, you have to understand, my mom is a very religious woman, always has been very religious, grown up in a very religious environment. But one of the girls suggested they do a seance to try and contact Michael, which was the name of the boy who had killed himself. So as she tells it, they got around in a circle and they started chanting, "We want to talk to Michael. We wish to speak with him. We wish to see him." And of course they had turned off all the lights and they had some candles lit. They were sitting in a circle and they kept chanting, "We wish to speak to Michael. You know, we wish to see him." And she said at first nothing really happened, and then all of a sudden Michael appeared to them in the middle of their circle. But it wasn't what they were expecting. Instead of being the Michael that they all remembered, it was Michael in his last few seconds. And Michael had committed suicide by shooting himself in the head with a shotgun. So, I mean, they're just wanting to talk to their friend and see him, and basically his corpse with half his head missing and blood and shows up before them. And I mean, they just freak out screaming. Someone turns the lights on, and I mean, they did not obviously sleep that night. And my mom, like, I remember the first time she told me that story, and I mean, you could tell it changed her. Like, it affected her in a big way. And it's funny to think about that now because I remember my entire childhood when I developed a desire and a thirst for paranormal. She didn't fight it, even though technically speaking, as strictly religious as my parents could be at times, that should have gone against everything they believed. But my mom never ever like said anything negative about me getting into the paranormal. Like, she didn't believe it. Whereas I remember my dad is vastly different now, because him and my mom will like do EVP sessions. They'll like go off to haunted places on their weekends and like spend the night. But I remember a time when my father did not like to talk about like ghosts or demons or anything because he did not believe in it. Obviously in the last few years that has changed. I think I am partially responsible for that because I got my parents into ghost adventures, like hardcore into it. So I think that changed some of his beliefs. And now he's like a total paranormal investigator on the weekends. Alright, so now I'm going to tell you some other stories that I found that I thought were kind of creepy. So 2 of them have to do with Ouija boards and 1 does not. The other one I just thought was kind of creepy, so I decided to tell you guys. So this first one kind of has a title. I think it's called Casting Spells. Pam was brought up in a religious family and thought she had a stable life until her mother began to use a Ouija board. Pam had been away from home for a few weeks, but when she returned, she was so shocked at the change in her mother. The quiet, pleasant woman was now frightening to Pam. Her mother began to consult a Ouija board and taking the board everywhere with her, asking the board what to do each time she had to make a decision. Pam remembered trying to fall asleep one night and having a distinct feeling she was being watched. Suddenly, Pam saw her mom in the room. When Pam complained about her fears and hoped that God was watching over her, her mother laughed and said that something was protecting Pam, but it wasn't God. Later that night, Pam said, "I heard a party going on downstairs. I looked at the clock and it was 1 in the morning, so I got up and went downstairs. I peeked around the corner and the plastic piece on the board was going by itself. Several different voices of men and women were coming out of my mom." Pam found her mother's Ouija board and burned it, but that didn't stop her mother, who bought another board and kept it with her for years. After Pam's mother died, the Ouija board disappeared from the house, but Pam reports that she's still being haunted by whatever it was her mother summoned through the board. So I just thought that was like really creepy. Like basically her mom became possessed by this Ouija board and whatever came through it, you know, and that's why I don't play with Ouija boards. So the second story is called Screaming in the Night. I've lived in the same house for the last 10 years without any highly unusual experience. The last week has been different. I live at my parents' house with my boyfriend. The first time I felt creeped out was a few nights ago when I was laying in bed next to my boyfriend playing on my phone while he slept. It was about 12 a.m. when I started hearing this incredible loud sound that seemed close to me. It was hard to describe, but it was almost like crowds cheering or multiple voices whispering. It was really frightening, but it only lasted about 30 seconds. A few hours later, about 3 a.m., I was woken up by the sound of music being played very loudly. The noise was so loud it seemed like it came from my living room. It might seem silly, but the music I heard was undoubtedly ABBA. This time it was loud enough to wake up my mom, who texted me to turn it down. There was no explanation for the source of the music. Fast forward about 2 days later, where I had my biggest fright. At 10:32 last night, I was in bed with my boyfriend who was playing video games. My mom was asleep in the next room. Suddenly, there was a screaming voice that went through my house. It was distinctively human and male. Once again, my mom texted me to be quiet. It wasn't us, though. At first the occurrence, we put it off as maybe a noise from an animal outside or something. At 1 a.m., I was laying in bed once again, the only one awake. I heard the same screaming, except it was 10 times as loud. It sounded like it was coming from right outside my door. I describe this scream as the scream of someone that's in pain. It's a painful scream. It lasted for a good 15 seconds. I tried waking my boyfriend up, but he didn't hear it. After explaining to him, we were both scared and decided to sleep with the light on. After a while, we went back to sleep until about 4 a.m. When we were both less scared, he asked me to turn the light off. I do, and about a minute later, we heard the scream again. Not as loud the second time, but louder than the first. My mom wakes up for a few minutes after that and I asked her what she heard. She agrees that it was obviously a scream and that it woke her up. We can't think of any ideas as to what it could be. We live in a neighborhood in the country. Each house is about 2 acres of land, so it couldn't be possible for it to be a neighbor. It came from within the house. I'm honestly so frightened. So I really like that story because, like, it really creeped me out. Like, being in your own house and being like that far away from any other neighbors and just hearing screaming, like that is so terrifying to me. I would never, ever, ever want that to happen to me, ever. Alright, and the last story I'm going to tell you on this amazing Halloween is called It Came from the Ouija Board. Some people will tell me it's all in my head. Others will say I'm just plain crazy. But I still stand by what I saw, what I felt, and what I experienced on a Halloween night in 2008. Nearly 8 years ago, when I was a fun-loving 14-year-old and a friend and I decided to play a nice, friendly game of Ouija. We made our own Ouija board out of an old poster board I had laying around from an old school project. We went online and read instructions on how to do it, so we did. We took a small clear glass, lit a few candles, turned out the lights, and sat in the spare room of my house with our fingers placed on the glass, asking all sorts of questions with no answer. We listened for any sign. We watched the candles to see if they'd flicker, but to no avail. "Let's just stop," my friend said with a disappointed sigh. "Nothing's happening." So we put it up, only to pull it out later at around 3 a.m. Now November 1st. I convinced her that it had been too early and the spirits hadn't been active. We asked the usual questions: who are you? What is your name? How did you die? Our hands steady on the glass, asking for what felt like forever, and then suddenly it happened. The glass bolted across the board and my friend let out a shriek. We kept asking questions, but it wouldn't answer. It just kept moving around in circles around the board, almost as if it was spinning at warp speed. The candles flickered like crazy, and without thinking, I grabbed up the board, crumpled it up, and threw it in the corner. We decided to call it a night and went to sleep. About a week later, after I discarded the Ouija board in the garbage can outside, I noticed weird things beginning to happen. I was back in the spare room one night playing on the computer when my lamp started flickering. I was a bit puzzled as I had just put a new bulb in it a few days prior, but I figured it was loose. It wasn't. I ignored it. However, a few hours later I began to hear snapping-like noises from the corner, one by one, as the light continued to flicker. As the months went on and the new year began, things only got stranger. Things of mine would go missing and appear in random places like a bottom drawer or in the medicine cabinet. I always had my things I needed, keys, wallet, etc., on my dresser, so the fact that they'd be in a drawer or a cabinet, or anywhere else for that matter, struck me as strange. I'd hear scratching noises on my walls late at night. I swear I'd see a tall dark shadow lurking near my door in the middle of the night, sometimes by the window. When I would tell my family, they would completely disregard it and tell me I was losing it, or that I was just seeing things, but things only got stranger. One night I was doing homework, and a plate fell off the wall and smashed to the floor. A few nights later, my mother came out of the bathroom with a puzzled look on her face and said to me, "Are you throwing things at me?" I felt something hitting my back over and over again. I hadn't moved from my desk. My dog was hiding in the corner every night and would randomly urinate in the middle of the room, which was unlike her. And when I would try to call for her, she'd whimper and shiver. The same incidences kept happening. Things like drawers, cupboards would be open when I would come home from school. Things still went missing, and I still have no explanation. I moved away from the house in fall of 2009 and still think about my experiences to this day. I'm now almost 22 years old and I still believe that I let something out of the Ouija board that night so many years ago, and it still gives me the creeps. I have not had any more ghostly experiences since I moved, thankfully. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed those stories. I really just wanted to focus on Ouija board stories because, like I said, they've always fascinated me, but I wouldn't even want to say had the guts to play with one. I just don't think it's a good idea to play with them. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Happy Halloween! I cannot believe October is going to be over at midnight tonight. Ugh, it's so sad. This October went by so fast. It's like the fastest an October has ever gone by. It's really weird. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you for sharing this October with me. It's been amazing. I can't wait to watch Blair Witch Project tonight. Yay! Alright, I love you guys so much, and I will see you later.